All right.
So industry headlines this week.
Yeah.
What is going on in the world of real estate, finance, tech, you name it?
Well, I think there's some interesting things going on behind the scenes, but to be honest with you, there was no like eye-capturing, like headline real estate stuff, clickbait, if you will. But I think there's some cool stuff happening behind the scenes. A lot of it having to do with the finance and mortgage markets, really. So I think we're going to spend some time talking about that.
Couldn't help but notice quite a few things going on the finance side of things, and with the relatively quiet week, it makes me wonder if there's like this mountain of stuff coming pretty soon. But I don't know. We'll see. So let's talk about it, because I thought the biggest news or the biggest surprise to anything was appraisals may not be required on a pretty good percentage of homes under like the $400,000 mark soon. And that is really surprising.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I think as data becomes bigger and bigger, and we talk about data and how it shows up in real estate, right? What you're starting to see is that the need for maybe an appraiser to go out to certain properties in certain situations may not be as vital as it once was. And so there's some talk right now that apparently a couple of the government agencies have already approved a rule change, and they're just waiting on the sign off from the Fed that would allow certain home sales of $400,000 or less to not require an appraisal.
Yeah, so really, to be really clear, this will not impact like FHA, HUD, Department of VA, if you will, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. But again, that's only a certain percentage of the loans that get done.
Well,
There's so many other private banks out there. This could impact as many as I read 40% of all home sales, because $400,000, I was thinking that's actually kind of a big number to start with, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. And so you first hear, you go, oh, well, that's just a headline grabber, right? Because if it doesn't apply to FHA or VA or Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, then it's not newsworthy. But there's still 40% of the loans that are being done out there this would apply to. And then what do we know historically? Some of these companies, right, they tend to follow the trend of what others before them do. They're just not going to be the ones that lead the way.
Yeah. No government agency can kind of go out there and be the front company, if you will, in something, a big change like this. However, the reality is, if this rule takes place, right, and we start seeing these loans happen without the appraisals, and now the cost goes down for these companies, what are these other agencies going to do? Well, they're going to hop on board.
They're going to have to shift, right? So I'm going to make a big statement. You can tell me that it's either dumb, you totally agree with it, or maybe I'm making a stretch. I don't care, right? Okay. You're good at criticizing me here, but I think what we're seeing right here, though, is almost more proof that the iBuyer model out there, the data model, right? This idea that technology is now allowing us to do business differently is creeping its way into the mortgage industry. So we have real estate agents out there that are criticizing right now the iBuyer model, saying, what do those guys know? How do they've never stepped foot in this house before? How can they sell it? Yet behind the scenes, the mortgage industry is starting to shift and say, we really don't even have to come out to your house anymore to determine its value. That to me is rather surprising. So I don't know if you think I'm stretching it there, or if you think there's some alignment in that opinion, but I just want to share that.
No, in fact, I think that's the biggest news piece of this news, if you will, is that, because that is essentially the mortgage community saying, hey, there's validity here in the changing of the times, the data that is shared as it pertains to the value of homes. And to me, that is really big. For years and years, everyone made fun of the Zestimate, right?
Yep.
Everybody, and rightfully so. Like it was never designed to be accurate. It was designed to be an attention grabber, right? And a conversation starter, which it certainly was. But really what that's done is it's brought validity to that type of estimate or desktop appraisal, as you probably remember it, DU. So yeah, that to me, that is the biggest story behind the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing I'll mention here is that I'm sure there's some people out there that are watching that are going, well, this will never happen in my market. You might be right. You may not be the first, right? I mean, I would imagine that it says, the way that some of the announcement was made is that certain homes for sale under 400,000. Sure. So it didn't say everything, but I think you're going to be able to go into markets like Phoenix, Arizona. Let's talk about the iBuyer markets, right? Phoenix, Dallas, Orlando, Las Vegas, those type of markets where you have newer built homes, right? In a lot of cases, a lot of tract homes in communities where it's easy to value properties. And that's going to be where you see these changes starting initially. Absolutely. Now, to me, that doesn't mean that the data won't catch up with itself into other markets over time, but that's going to be probably where you see some of these certain rules apply.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, this is another sort of like, oh, that's interesting. Let's see how this continues to play out, because I think there's a lot of things that can fall behind this. And on similar related note, like what's going on with mortgage rates? Everyone came into 2019 thinking, okay, this is the year they're going up. I remember everyone was sort of bracing for it at the end of 2018.
I feel like we were bracing for it at the end of 16 and 17.
Oh, we probably were.
Call me crazy, but I'm trying to remember back to a couple years ago when you and I worked in a different place. And I remember having the conversation then about interest rates only have one place to go. It's probably up. Well, boy, were we wrong. So don't listen to everything we have to say, right? But I mean, so is nearly everybody else in the market. Everybody else has been predicting, you look at the historical trends, and sooner or later, like the market's got to go down a little bit. That's probably going to happen because interest rates are going to rise. The cost of money is going to cost more for people to buy homes. Right. But here we are, and we just hit another 3-year low in the last 7 days.
Yeah. 3-year low.
The 30-year fixed rate mortgage fell to another 3-year low.
And I know 3-year low doesn't sound very sensational or clickbaity, but like, let's think about the fact that 3 years ago, we were already going, I can't believe how low the rates are.
Yeah.
So when you think about it in that context, like, yeah, this is a big deal. Now, the one thing I will say is Freddie Mac, because I watched Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, as you pointed out a week or two ago. I watched them quite.
By watching your entire life savings is in those stocks?
Just that money I borrowed from you.
Oh, okay.
So right. No, but the reality, like Freddie Mac actually said, it came out earlier this year, said, yeah, we believe rates will continue to go down this year.
Yep.
They made that statement somewhere towards the end of the first quarter. And so far that's coming true. I mean, goodness gracious, here we go. Like, what's the average? Like 3.55 or something crazy low like that.
Something ridiculous,
on the 30-year fix. So at any rate, rates are down, continuing to go down. The market still seems really healthy. Like there's a lot of activity out there. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Well, I thought this is an interesting quote from one of the Freddie Mac chief economists, right? Okay. And I'm just gonna give you a couple bits that were in it. He said home purchase demand is up 5% from a year ago, right? While refinances surged to their highest share in 3.5 years. So that was pretty interesting, right? Home purchase demand up, but then refinances have surged to their highest rate that they've been in 3.5 years. He went on to say that the average homeowner who's refinancing right now in the second quarter anywhere saved an average of $1,700 a year, which is equivalent to about $140 a month, right? So
by the way, that's a big deal for like the average American household.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have this data in front of me right now, but we know the average real estate agent, according to NAR, makes what, $38,000 to $42,000 a year over the last 3-4 years of that study, right? So, like, let's say that the average household somewhere in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, probably a 2-income household, maybe a little bit higher, but I mean, that's a significant amount of money when you're saving $1,700 a year. That's
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So listen, let's talk about our last piece, because man, if this isn't a sign of the times, I don't know what the hell is. I remember, hold on a second. I'm just going to like digress for a second.
Okay.
I remember there was a time where Twitter was for like finding your cool friends in tech to like go to the same party. I remember Ben Kinney and Bob Stewart, Active Bob, both good friends of ours, like telling a story about how when they first met, Bob was at Active Rain and Ben hadn't yet just met those guys, and they went to a party together because of Twitter. Like they tweeted about, hey, the after party for this event that Active Rain is hosting is over here. Like when I think of Twitter, that's what I think of. Yet, here we go. We've got, as of last week on Twitter, the social media platform, President Trump took his argument to Twitter to ask the Fed to cut their rates by another 100 basis points.
It's so funny, your association with Twitter. My association with Twitter is like the first time you were on Twitter, your profile picture had hair on it. Like that's what I think of when I think of Twitter. So it's really interesting that you would point out Bob and Ben. But anyway, on a more serious note, I mean, President Trump, you can go read the tweets yourself. I personally have to read them in the news. I personally can't read all of them. I have too many things going on in my day to get wrapped up in that. But President Trump took to Twitter last week and specifically asked the Fed to cut rates by another 100 basis points. That's a lot, just so we're really clear. I mean, most of the rate changes or, either the rate drops or the rate hikes we've seen have been like in quarter increments. And here he is calling for 100 basis pothis.
It's, and he did it on Twitter.
He did it on Twitter, yeah.
Here's the best part. So like he criticized Democrats. By the way, this is not a political statement. Please don't take this as pro-Trump, anti-Trump, pro-Republican, or pro-Democrat, because I'm none of those things. But he criticized Democrats of trying to create a quote bad economy leading up to the 2020 election.
Well, and that brings up a point. I've heard you on a couple different occasions, sort of when people have asked, what do you think the market's going to do? Like, look, my crystal ball works as well as any other economist, right? They're right, sometimes they're wrong, and we're not even economists, just so we're incredibly clear on this, right? But I think a valid point that you've made before is that, you know, there's a lot of pressure around making sure the economy is not in the tank leading up to the 2020 election. Right. So the controlling power in government right now does not want to see the economy go in the tank. Now, maybe the non-controlling party wants to see it worsen, but I don't think anybody in their right mind in government wants to see a terrible economy going into the 2020 election. That's not good for our country. So I'm not here to try to predict what's going to happen and all that, but I think there's enough at play when you're talking about a very important election coming up, and maybe the most heated election ever, at least the most talked about in the social media era election ever coming. So it's just going to be interesting to see what happens with mortgage rates, real estate economy, et cetera, as we go into this 2020 election cycle.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I just want to point out, like, that was President Trump trying to, like, make sure the economy's good leading into
he wants it to be good, right. Just so we're clear. He's accusing the other side of trying to create a bad economy by not reducing the basis points of the Fed.
I just hate that there's only two sides. I don't know. I think that's it for this week, right?
I think we're very hopeful that there's going to be some exciting new headlines coming up next week.
Something tells me there is.
But in the meantime, lots of stuff going on in the mortgage world that directly impacts our economy and directly impacts real estate sales. So stay tuned. We'll be back next week for industry headlines.
We'll see you then. Have a great week.
Take care.